Hi everyone, it's Mr. Barton here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to load in a sound file into your p5js sketch and play it back utilizing a keyboard input or a on-screen button input. So utilizing this, you're actually able to get through quite a lot of this first section of this sound unit. So let's just hop right into it and get it done. So right here, I have, and I'll, again, as always, put a link to this in the description, a link to the beginning of the sound unit of this course. So down here is the script that we need to include in our HTML file in order to access and utilize the code in this library. If you don't have this and don't do this part of the step right here, nothing else will work. So definitely pay attention and do this. So I've got a new sketch right here, loaded up, ready to go. So you open up yours. It's just the default sketch. In fact, we'll just give it a name. Just so I know what it is. And I'm going to hop over into my sketch files, and we're going to head over to the index.html. So very similar to working with something like P5 Play, we need to start by putting in the code that we just copied. And this is basically just telling the computer, hey, go find this and use it. However, there's one extra step compared to when we're working with P5 Play and some other libraries, and that is once you've pasted that there, you'll notice there's another line here that's already included on line 5 by default that is linking to something called P5 Sound. This is P5's normal sound library that it normally uses. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just prefer using the other one for this course. So that's what we're going to do. I've got in the textbook under additional resources how you can do a lot of this using the P5 sound library, but this one that we'll be using is basically the standard in terms of utilizing audio with JavaScript, in the web browser, like we're doing for this course. It's pretty much what most, if not everything, really uses in order to build their sound library, including P5 Sound. So that way they don't fight, because they will not work together. We have to delete that line. So now this is what the head of my HTML file looks like. So boop, we can head over to there. If you want to be extra sure you've got that up and going, we can just say console.log Tone with a capital T and run that. And you should see this down here will pop up, and this is just saying here's everything in Tone. So if you see that pop up, you're good. Okay, so let's load in a file. So on the textbook right here, if you look under additional resources, that place I mentioned before, there's a page here called samples for projects, and anyone in this class can utilize any of these sounds that we have right here. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm going to pick this one randomly right here and download it. All right, there we go. And hop back over to the sketch here. So I want to first, I'm going to make a folder to put all this in. So audio, and I'm going to go into that folder, and I'm going to upload a file specifically in the audio folder. So if we upload that file, I'm going to hop over here. Oh, you opened up on that window this time. Let's see, downloads. And we're just going to drag and drop that file right in. Boom. There you go. So again, I have put this in a folder for my sketch. If you don't put yours in a folder, then anytime I refer to the folder name, you want to omit that. Or if you put yours in a folder with a different name, you want to make sure that your folder is named appropriately for your sketch. So one thing I'm also going to do is rename my file by clicking on this little triangle right here. And I'm just going to call it cowbell, just because that's a lot easier to type and I know what it is. And it's just going to be a lot less headache. So cowbell.mp3. Okay, so now that we've loaded this in, we can utilize the file in our sketch. So we're going to say function preload. And then preload, again, is loading up these these resources before the sketch even runs, so that way they're not having to buffer as the sketch is running. You're going to want to do this for the sound files because those are starting to get a little bit bigger than a lot of image files and things like that. So doing this beforehand will save you a lot of headache. So we're going to call it preload, and we're going to use this to make a new object. So I'm just going to call this my sound. Nope, no, don't do that. No emojis. My sound. There we go. So then my sound, this is going to be the object that holds our sound and is used to play it back. So it's going to be assigned to be a new capital T tone.player object, like that. The player object is what is used to contain a sound file and play it back. So you can think of it like it's an MP3 player that's playing back a sound file. If you're an older person watching this or up on your history, it would be kind of like having, the little small records that only had one track on it, something like that. It's a one player, one object per file. That's what we're working with right now. The argument that will go in here is where to locate the file. So as a string, it's in the audio folder / and it is cowbell with a capital C .mp3 p3, just like that. So now at this point, everything should be working. No errors. It's all good to go. But we can't actually hear it just yet. So let's do that. I'm going to go down here and we'll just say function key pressed. And I'm going to do this real easily. If key code is equal to 13, then so if we press the return key, then my sound, the name that we gave it upon, in this case, live line 5, if I can talk, and we're just going to run the start method, and this will play the sound file from beginning to end, just like normal. So if we run this, and I click over here into the preview and hit return, you will hear exactly nothing. See, nothing. So remember how I said we had to have that constant stream of numbers from source to output? Again, just like in the real world, you had to have that constant, molecules bumping into each other in order to hear any sound. We, again, need to connect it to the output speakers. So to do that, we can do it in a variety of different ways. The quickest and easiest is when we make the object, we can just tack onto the end of it here, .to destination. And then that's a method, so it gets its own parentheses there. So what this one does is it takes the output, whatever that is kind of going, whatever it's connected to right there, and sends that audio signal out to the final destination speakers, whether that's the computer's built-in speakers, the headphones, some other source. It's whatever the system output is here. So now that we've connected all of it, I like to envision, connecting it with wires, and I press the return key, we should hear something. I hope you all heard that. I definitely heard it in my speakers. You see, this is what I get for not checking my stuff beforehand. So we're going to send it out here, and now you should hear this. There we go. We heard some bits. So all the bits are there. We can now trigger a sound. We can tell it to play all the things. If we wanted to load up multiple sounds, there's a few ways that we can do that. I'm just going to download this one, and we'll upload another file here. Bloop. And then I'm just going to rename it popcorn.mp3, like so. My sound, I'll call it pop. And it gets the same process. Pop. Actually, no, that's not going to like that. Oh, popcorn. Because pop is a function in P5. And it's going to be a new tone dot player with a capital P dot to destination, like so. And we just tell it where to find that. Audio slash popcorn.mp3. Again, the same process. We just have to make a separate object for each one at this point. And then we could say if key code is equal to 32, popcorn.start. If I run that again, now if I click the space bar, we'll hear the first sound, or sorry, the return key. And if I hear play the space bar here, we will hear the other sound. So again, we can map these to different keys, and there's different ways that you can go about doing this. You know, the conditionals in the key code. You could do a switch. You could do, ask other keys like the letter names instead of the ASCII numbers. There's a variety of different ways that you could set that up, but we are just hitting a physical button and having the computer respond. There's better ways we can do this. However, I'm going to save part of that for another video. But what I'm going to finish this one out with is putting an on-screen button. So maybe for whatever reason, you don't want to utilize a physical button. You just want to click on something on the screen and have it work. So we've already got these sounds already loaded. So let's just use them, but this time with the on-screen buttons. So we'll say let button 1 and button 2. We don't need to use preload for any of this, so I'm just going to head into setup, and we can say button 1 gets assigned to be the result of the create button function in P5. And what create button does is this handles a lot of the HTML stuff of making a button and making it do stuff. Makes it a lot easier to do. So the argument here is just as a string, what text do you want to appear on the button, and the button will automatically change its size to match the text. So we'll call this one cowbell sound, and then button 2 because one too many of those. Popcorn. Just like so. So we've made the buttons, and when I refresh this, you can now see them on the bottom of the canvas. They'll appear there. It's totally fine. I don't like them there. So I kind of break down making and using a button into 3 steps. The first one, make the button. We've already done that. The next one, button 1 dot position. This is a method where we can just place the position of the button. And this is going to be an argument or 2 arguments, and it's just going to be the X and Y position on the screen. So 100, 100, why not? And then I'll do the same thing for button 2 dot position, and we'll put that at 100, 300. Oop. So we got these buttons kind of arranged vertically on the canvas. boom, there they are. You can put them wherever you want with this. It's very handy. The last step is to actually do something with the buttons, because right now they're just hooked up. They aren't hooked up to anything. I should say that I click on them, nothing happens. All right, so we can just say button 1.mouse pressed. And the argument for this will just be a function to call back whenever that button is pressed. So we'll say this, I'll call it play bell. And then just to save time, I'm going to copy and paste this. And this will be now button 2.mouse pressed, and that will be play pop. So I've made these callback functions with, or I'm referring to them. They don't exist yet. So I'm just going to hop right down here. I'll just go above my key pressed. And we'll still have function play bell and function play pop. And these are very simple functions. It's just going to be this one, what I call that, my sound.start and my popcorn.start. Because we only have the one object up here, and they're already connected up. We're just setting up different ways to have that object respond and trigger to that, trigger to different inputs. So again, I could press the keyboard buttons like I wanted if I wanted to, but I could also now click on the button. I'll click on the other one just to show you it works too. And now we can trigger the sound. So this is about half of the first big project in this unit. Being able to load up sounds and play them back, either with a keyboard or the mouse inputs. There's, of course, tons of other ways you could program this, but for the context of this course, being able to load in a sound, get it to play back, we're going to focus on these. If you have other inputs for your device and your code, you could very easily say, okay, well, if this thing happens, play the sound. All you really need is to have this .start method somewhere, and you just tell it what sound to start. There is a few drawbacks to this. There's a few drawbacks, and that is the main one being that every object, or you need a new object for every sound. Nothing inherently wrong with that, but at least for how my brain works, I try to minimize the amount of variables and objects so I don't have more than I need. But, free up those resources for the computer for something else. That'll be a focus of the next video about how we can help optimize some of that. But just know that there are some better ways to organize our sounds in order to have them play and be, fairly manageable. A few other things to point out, just as we're wrapping up, you may have noticed I did not put any start messages inside of the draw function. I specifically placed them inside of separate functions. The reason for that is because inside the draw function, if that happens there, the draw function is running at 60 frames a second. That is very fast. So that means that every time that loops, 60 times a second, it's going to try to start the sound file. And it just sounds like in the best case scenario. I'm not going to play it now because it's super loud and annoying. But it's not going to play the sound files back how you want them to play. Now, if you're wanting to make that that particular sound, you may ask, well, why wouldn't I just do that? Well, because that's just probably the worst way you could do it. Just make a sound file that sounds like that and just play it back once. Don't utilize all those extra resources of trying to start a sound file over and over again just for one particular effect. But that's a whole other tangent I don't want to go down right now. But by placing the start command inside of separate functions, like these callbacks or key pressed, they're only getting called one time. So in this case, of the buttons on the screen, I click it, I have to click the button a separate time in order for it to be called a separate time. That's just how it works. So that way it'll just play the sound on the first command and we can hear it. Same thing with putting this in key pressed. It's just whenever a key is pressed, it does the thing one time. So you'd have to press it again, and this will just avoid a lot of issues, and you can actually hear the sounds that you want to hear in your program. This is where I'm going to start wrapping it up now. So like always, this code and the links in the book, that'll all be in the description down below for you to check out and explore on your own. So that's where I'm going to wrap this one up, and I will see you all the next time that I see you.